The celestial eye in ancient Egypt just hiding in plain sight?
People and historical figures seeing with their third eye to avoid catastrophes?
Examples of psychic abilities through your celestial eye?
Why no one talks about the celestial eye anymore?
The history of the celestial eye you just don't want to miss.
All this and more on today's episode of The Edge of Wonder.
Welcome to today's episode of The Edge of Wonder. I'm Ben.
And I'm Rob. In our previous video, we talked about what the third eye is and how it's used.
So in this episode, we're going to show you guys historical examples that not only prove the celestial eye exists,
but you'll be wondering why in the world scientists think this is a vestigial eye. We're going to get into the third eye being used for psychic abilities next, so stay tuned and remember to click that subscribe button if you haven't already.
Do you guys want to know what cultures of ancient past was the celestial eye prevalent in?
There are carvings of Sumerian gods, which some say are the Anunnaki, an ancient race that are extraterrestrial in origin, which depict a pine cone being given to humans. It is said that they had the ability to access their pineal gland for its conscious expanding abilities.
Yeah, and it just so happens that the pineal gland is shaped like a pine cone. Ancient Mayan art and architecture also depicts many images of priests and shamans seated in the lotus position, which bear a close resemblance to Buddhism, with also a dot on their forehead similar to what is found in most cultures in Asia.
But nothing is more shocking than the Egyptian knowledge of the celestial eye.
That's true. That's right. One of the more popular depictions of the celestial eye is from ancient Egyptian iconography with the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Horus.
So the really interesting thing about why they use this as the symbol is because when you look at the lateral view of the pineal gland within the brain, it is exactly in the shape of this symbol. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Ancient Egyptians also broke down the celestial eye into mathematical parts all related to the human body's health. Even though the most common understanding is that the RX symbol came from the word recipe, many people believe its origin was the Eye of Horus.
So next time you're at your local pharmacy, make sure to school your pharmacist. We're about to get into some amazing stories of people using their celestial eye.
In many cultures in Asia, there is a lot of paintings and other artwork showing scenes inside people's foreheads or having a dot in the middle of the forehead representing the celestial eye or third eye.
Did you guys know that in China, the name for the celestial eye or the third eye is Tianmu, which literally means heaven's eye?
There's a story in the Three Kingdoms series about a famous doctor named Hua Tuo who saw a tumor in the chancellor of the Eastern Han Dynasty, Cao Cao, and he saw it in his brain and wanted to operate on it to remove it.
So Cao Cao thought that Hua Tuo wanted to actually kill him, so he imprisoned Hua Tuo, and soon his head started to hurt, and his own doctor said that he had a tumor.
So he had his servants go out, try to find Hua Tuo, but it turns out he had died in prison.
So since none of his own doctors were as skilled enough as Hua Tuo, there was basically nothing they could do, and eventually Cao Cao died of the tumor. Great job. Just died from pride.
There's another story about a famous monk in China named Qigong, who was known as a very eccentric kind of monk, almost like a crazy guy. There's a famous story about how he came upon a village that was located at the base of a mountain, and what he saw was a giant landslide about ready to happen to destroy the village. Like he saw this in a vision.
Right. So he ran to the village trying to warn everyone of the coming danger. So what did the villagers do? Well, there was a wedding taking place, and of course no one believed him, because why would you want to if you set all of that stuff up? So like some thought he was there to actually just disturb the peace, right?
Right. And after realizing that no one was believing him, he decided to kidnap the bride in the middle of their wedding, which angered the entire town, and they all started to go after him.
So yeah. Soon after, the giant landslide happened, which destroyed the entire village. It said a giant boulder was actually about to fall on a little girl, like she was underneath it.
Right, and so monk Qigong said to use a supernormal ability called Iron Palm, which pushed the boulder back and saved the girl.
So to this day, visitors can see the imprint of a hand sunken into the base of a rock in Hangzhou's Flying Peak, in which this story took place.
Right, yeah.
Next, we're going to talk about psychic abilities through the celestial eye, so keep watching.
And without further ado, we're going to talk about the most famous man related to psychic abilities on the planet, Nostradamus.
Now, depending on what you're reading and how you translate what Nostradamus said, most of you are thinking of two things he used to have his visions. One is a copper bowl filled with water, and the other is a black mirror.
These black mirrors are often referred to as scrying mirrors, and people usually emphasize these things having a load of mystical powers, etc.
Okay, we're not saying that these mirrors or the bowl filled with water and a divining rod can't have a certain amount of power, but these tools were used mostly as assistants. The real abilities were coming from Nostradamus himself.
Yes, sometimes celestial eye visions aren't all that clear, and using a bowl of water or a black mirror, or even sometimes a crystal ball, can help concentrate, helps you see these visions more clearly as you calm down and focus.
So let's just say it plainly. Nostradamus was seeing these visions through his celestial eye, and this is one of the abilities your celestial eye contains, depending on how great your abilities are.
But we really can't emphasize this enough. It's really not up to you how great your abilities are, and you shouldn't worry about whether you can or can't see anything. The next example, and arguably the best example of someone prophesizing the future, is the chameleon Sibyl.
The chameleon Sibyl is said to have written her prophecies on leaves. People would come to her cave to collect them, and they were sometimes bound into books. They're even called the Sibyllian leaves.
So there's a story of the Sibyl bringing 9 volumes of these prophecies to Tarquin II of Rome. She offered them at a ridiculous price, so when the king refused to pay, she burned 3 volumes and offered the remaining at the original price. When there were only 3 books left, the king just couldn't stand it any longer and finally just bought the remaining books at the full price.
I mean, remind me to use this tactic next time I'm selling something. The crazy thing is that these books were actually used for hundreds of years and only during the gravest of times to avoid, oncoming catastrophes. But sadly, the final volumes all perished in a fire in about 405 AD.
So how did the chameleon Sibyl see these prophecies? Well, the celestial eye showed her visions of the future and she just wrote them down. Now, on a side note, there's a lot of people out there that are all saying like, oh, I'm psychic and I can see all these visions and whatever, but I mean, if you're paying money in general, I would just say, okay, some people have this as a job, they may be pretty good, but in the end, it's like,
yeah, be careful.
Just be careful. If you haven't watched our video on portals to the underworld yet, you really need to go and watch that. Next, did George Washington really have a vision of an angel that told him the future of America?
And did General Patton have visions through his celestial eye?
So in the winter of 1777, George Washington had a vision at Valley Forge about the future of America. The account was told by a gentleman named Anthony Sherman, and is in the Library of Congress. There's even a painting about the vision.
Washington was alone at Valley Forge and asked not to be disturbed when he looked up and saw a beautiful female standing across the room. He told her he asked not to be disturbed, but she didn't say anything back to him, and aside from basically just raising her eyes.
Soon he felt a strange sensation as he starts to address her again, and he becomes paralyzed. He then sees the room around him just becoming luminous with this light.
Yeah, so she says to him, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." And he saw a dark, shadowy being basically behind, which he describes like an angel floating in midair between Europe and America. He sees lightning and hears cries of Americans.
Right, so basically what he's seeing is like the peril of the coming of a revolutionary war for the first vision.
Right. And then the next scene, he sees Africa and what he describes as an ill-omened specter approaching the US. He then sees the people of America fighting each other.
He then sees a bright angel wearing a crown with the word Union on it and bearing an American flag, which he placed between the divided nation and said, "Remember ye are brethren." Instantly, they ceased fighting and became friends once again.
So this one is about the Civil War, which was like a little less than 100 years after he had the vision.
Right. So the final one is when he was shown a huge army coming to the US and they were burning cities, millions were in combat fighting each other, and then all of a sudden he saw a bright light, which he described as 1,000 suns that broke into fragments and enveloped all of America.
And then after that, he sees an angel with the national flag in one hand and a sword in the other. Descending from the heavens, he was told, "While the stars remain and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so long shall the union last." That's crazy.
That's crazy.
And the stars, I assume, refer to the states, right?
That's what I'm thinking
the Union
too.
of the States.
Yeah, the Union of the States. But she warns him that the most fearful is the third one, and to tell everyone about what he saw. So he realizes that he's seeing the birth, progress, and destiny of the United States.
Want to hear one of the more modern stories about celestial eye visions?
General George S. Patton, who is known as the Great General during World War II, but also fought in World War I, said he could see a lot of his previous lives.
He wrote Through a Glass Darkly, where he describes how he saw many of his past lives, which he fought in all of them.
Yeah. So during both World Wars, Patton even claimed to know his way around all the towns on the battlefields, even though he's never been there before. Patton believed that this came from the time as a French knight fighting in the English under Edward III, most notably at Crécy.
That's crazy, man. Patton describes another incarnation where he slayed Parthians with his gladius, an awesome sword approximately 25 to 32 inches long. He even said in his vision that he was wounded and he was killed by like an array of arrows.
Yeah, they like shot him.
What a way to die. Imagine that.
In one of his last visions he was Joachim Murat, who was one of Napoleon's marshals and one of the most capable cavalry officers and leaders in service to the French emperor.
Before the 1943 invasion of Sicily, British General Harold Alexander told Patton, "You know, George, you would have made a great marshal for Napoleon if you had lived in the 19th century."
To which Patton said, "But I did." Patton also believed that after he died, he would return once again to lead the armies into battle.
General Patton actually died in Germany on December 21st, 1945, after heart failure from a car crash. However, there seems to be evidence to support that he was murdered because he wanted the United States to basically take care of Russia right after the end of World War II.
To get even crazier, because I mean, we love to get super weird and crazy on this show.
Speak for yourself, man. I don't like that. Just kidding.
There are many people who believe that President Trump is actually the reincarnation of General Patton.
Don't believe us? Check out this picture. They do look a lot alike, and also Trump really looks up to Patton, actually.
He
Which
does,
is pretty funny.
yeah.
So, of course, we're not saying this is true. It's kind of up to you to decide. So, speaking of reincarnation, do you guys want us to do an episode on reincarnation? Because we have a lot of info on it.
Yeah,
if you
we can definitely do it.
please comment below, and we guys will hit you with some reincarnation stories. So, you guys might be asking why no one really talks about the celestial eye anymore. Basically, our understanding is that science criticizes things it can't understand and calls it superstition. But anyway, this has been our episode on the history of the celestial eye. What did you guys think? Please comment below and let us know.
Also, guys, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We can definitely use all the support we can get. We're new and we want to keep making great videos for you guys. Until then, we'll see you guys out
On the edge.